Hello, everyone. Good to see the online community and familiar faces and everybody here. I've been away for a while. It's good to be back, though. Good to have my Saturday routine. So this is the final talk in the series of talks we've had recently, which was the mind, art, beauty, and myth. And so today I'm going to actually just take all of those subject matters and put it into one talk. This whole thing of art, beauty, and myth and the mind are all key to Buddhism. And I'll just go through them one by one. I'm putting beauty second instead of art. But they're a bit like what we call the five skandhas or the five heaps. They're a bit sort of, in terms of Buddhism, where they're sort of, you can sort of mix them around. There's no real linear fashion to this. But as Buddhists, we see them as key to our integration into the universe, especially in true Atman. So I'll start with the mind. As Buddhists, we see ourselves very much that we are minds, we're not bodies, we're minds. The whole of our, we're a body mind. So all of our senses and everything, all our nervous system runs through our body, and that is the whole thing is the mind. We very much respond to the sense inputs. I'm sure people have heard me say this before, and other people saying this. And there's a very famous episode in the Dhammapada which points to what I'm about to go into. Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never departs. And this is in some ways, this is saying that our response to our senses is what makes our mind. The senses very much make up our mind, for those who don't quite understand what I'm saying. So what you see, you will have a feeling tone which will go with that seeing. What you hear, you will have the same. And depending on what your response to that is, your emotions and actions will flow on from that. So we have these things called the three poisons, which humans tend to bring on as a reaction to their sense inputs. So the first one of these is greed, which is craving, and clinging and addiction to pleasantness. Delusion, which is ignorance and misapprehension. And hatred, which is aversion and avoidance and a struggle with unpleasant feelings. And if we let these things run us, then we will just have a reactive life, which is always working in these three things: greed, hatred, and delusion. So one of the ways to move on from this is another line from the Dhammapada. A person who delights in mindfulness and who regards unmindfulness as painful is not liable to regression, and he is present in nirvana. So what we're saying here is, with mindfulness, we can begin to break this cycle of greed, hatred, and delusion. So this can bring on, and we have the three antidotes, which are generosity, wisdom, and loving kindness. And we can practice these through mindfulness in the threefold way, which is the Buddha's way to the end of suffering, which is ethics, meditation, and wisdom. And with this mindfulness, we can always bring to mind that we need to be generous, not greedy, have wisdom and not be deluded, and have loving kindness instead of hatred. And we work at this, and this will bring upon, will give us a taste of nirvana. I'll read that Dhammapada thing again. The person who delights in mindfulness and who regards unmindfulness as painful is not liable to regression to the three poisons. Just inserted that in brackets. He is presence in nirvana, and he is in the presence of nirvana. Now, one thing, some of you, because a lot of people keep coming back here, and one thing you might experience when you have insight and release from meditation practice or your Dharma practice is that things appear to be beautiful. Things just seem more beautiful. We often talk of beauty in Buddhism. And nirvana, one of the qualities of nirvana is that it's beautiful. So this brings us on to our next subject matter, which is beauty. And this is a line which is very popular around here. There's like these lines from the Diamond Sutra. Subhuti, how can one tell this sutra to others without holding in mind any arbitrary conception of forms or phenomena or spiritual truths? It can only be done, Subhuti, by keeping the mind in perfect tranquility and free from attachment to appearances. So I say to you, this is how to contemplate our conditioned existence in this fleeting world. Like a tiny drop of dew or a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom, or a dream. So is all conditioned existence to be seen. Thus spoke the Buddha. And the interesting thing about this is that always examples illustrate not only impermanence of things, which is a truth, but also beauty. The tiny little dewdrop, I'm sure we can all imagine that. And it's in our minds, that which one of us will have that in our mind, this tiny little jewel which refracts the whole world, just glistening in the sun and evaporating, within half an hour, or bubbles floating down streams or in sinks, and you just get those little moments of brief little roundness, and that's rainbows refracting in them. And there's something beautifully delicate and transient and beautiful about it. This I think we all understand. I mean, one of my big memories in my life is when I first moved to Australia and I was on Bondi Hill. It was nighttime, and there's this huge clouds of brewing off on the horizon, and then they were just lit up by lightning, like huge, vast lanterns, and it was just so awesome. Just I've never forgotten that. And so we can say that when we're in positive mindsets from our practice of being loving and kind and generous and grateful, that we find the truth. We are easy with the truth. We also find beauty. And you can say that truth and beauty almost go together in a Buddhist mind. Which often takes mindfulness. Mindfulness can really help us attain beauty. We become more concerned and more interested, and just in the detail and the presence of something else in this universe. We feel connection and love for all that too. We can say that mindfulness and metta, in some ways, just equal each other. But when that is bringing me on to art. So often often with this sense of beauty, we want to be able to translate and communicate to others. So I think this is an inherent instinct of artists. But as Dharma practitioners, I think this is also the case because we all often want to try and communicate what it is we've understood or what it is we've sensed through our feelings, often just through our feeling senses, about how we have found freedom and love in these situations. But this is and as artists, you can have awe, and we try and do that. But I think as Dharma practitioners, we can also work with this. There's a art critic called John Ruskin. Some of you may have heard of, a Victorian art critic. He has some great things to say. There's a quote. One of his quotes was, "When love and skill come together, expect a masterpiece," which I thought was a great one. And another one he said is, "Nothing can be beautiful which is not true." This is interesting. It's no accident that meditation and dharmic activities and art are all practices. We're always practicing in this field. To make art, one needs to be absorbed in the subject matter to such an extent that the subject-object dichotomy breaks down, truth and beauty are manifest. As in meditation practice, the hindrances will arise, but one's response to them is key. Mistakes shouldn't be catastrophized. Simply start again with care. Areas of which might seem tedious filling in are done with interest and care, maybe with a sense of love in your heart. Difficulties are handled with patience and interest. Fearlessness and decision-making is key. Us all the time, one tries to have an open-hearted, non-grasping awareness of the unfolding before you. Through this process, an artist enters more of a meditative state. The egocentric, reactive self is abandoned for a more non-self, or evaporates to a more non-creative self. Even ownership of things is brought into question. The local mind becomes part of a greater mind, the universal subconsciousness. Gross mind shrinks to reveal a more subtle mind. And to reveal a mind which is more luminous. It is said that one can never really describe how one feels, one understands beauty and truth, or encounters with the transcendental. But artists and poets can certainly evoke it. In many ways, I feel that the purpose of art is not the result, but the process and what it teaches us, what it teaches one about the nature of reality, how one can be present with beauty. Practicing the Dharma can make us all more aware. It's a creative process of moulding and refining ourselves to align with truth and beauty. And arts and crafts practices can help us deepen our connection to the universe. Of course, some artists' work breaks out of their inner universal subconscious world into the mundane popular culture world that we all communicate through. And perhaps this is where art becomes and joins with the mythic forces of the world. This is obviously my own take on artists who feel hitting these heights. This is obviously me, English Australian 60-year-old man. You all will have your own lists. With Dan Grunwald Hieronymus Bosch, Rembrandt, Vermeer, Turner, Monet, Van Gogh, Hilma af Klint, Picasso, Jackson Pollock, Georgia O'Keeffe, Bridget Riley, Andy Goldsworthy. There's musicians, Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, Beatles, Pink Floyd, Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, Ian the Stooges, Ryan Eno, Joy Division, a mixed bag, George Eliot, Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, Günter Grass. Then we come to myth. Myth is the one I find hardest to talk about, really. And one of the good things about these talks is it brings these things to mind and makes you try and work out what it is you're talking about. But myth is very hard. It's a difficult one for me to work out. So what my response to delving into this was, it's an archetypal idea of things, of a thing which is not provable for rational, conceptual, or historically orientated consciousnesses. I mean, we all have a sense of what one is when we think of the Greek gods, and as Westerners, we think about those, and so the idea of God is a myth to us. But there's a sense of being set in a flowing in and flowing with the currents of a larger than life reality. Things become mythical because they seem powerful and real in some inexplicable way. Just talking about them, though, is like trying to nail jelly to a wall. It's just seems sort of impossible in a way, although you can try. Yes, they're pointing at something beyond the power of words, but nevertheless, the core of their meaning are very real. Like the Mahayana Buddhas we have on the wall here. We have a sense of the power and the good, but how do you point to that? How do you talk about it? The idea of enlightenment is obviously something we hold dear to us here. That's what I'm trying to become enlightened. But how do I talk about that, which makes any sense? We often talk about the nature of reality. I think I've mentioned it several times in this talk. What does that mean? I have a sense of it, and I think about it a lot. But to really talk about it and nail it down, it will just, all of you will have a different sense of it. There's also this thing of rebirth, deep time rebirth, continuous rebirth over millennia. All these ideas of the cosmic background to our existences, what we play our lives out against. As Buddhists, we should see that mind, beauty, art, and myth are the backgrounds to how we work our daily activities out. So maybe we can see ourselves as minds in a universal mind. Beauty can be more easily accessed through the creative discipline of the Dharma. Art is a response and inquiry into truth and beauty and myth. Myth is the well from which we both draw and also replenish our connection to a mysterious and intangible truth. Thank you. Thank you. So I have some questions. Number one, how, as Buddhists in a Western context, do we creatively work with Western scientific views and myths and the Buddhist ones? Do you have any strong myths you identify with? Are there any myths you find unhelpful? You want me to repeat that?
Yes, please.
So how, as Buddhists in a Western context, do we creatively work with Western scientific views and the Western myths like Robin Hood or whatever? And how does that work with our Buddhist ideas? Do you have any strong myths which you identify with? Are there any myths you find unhelpful? You can ask questions, you can talk about whatever you like as well. I mean, there might be other things came up for you there, so bring those up. Thank you.